7 days a week. Count on one station, El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And we are up in all of those places. Already got people tuning in, chiming in, Mondo Monconda with the howdy to you as well as we get underway for one of our most important days of the week. Definitely, no argument there. Free for all Friday, what we call it. So we'll be taking those comments and everything we do, including Ronaldo Rivera with a you washing windows out here? Because I ain't got any spare change for you. I'm not sure what the window wipe part of that is. But in any case, we got comments coming in. We got people joining us. And of course, we got those phone lines open as we got the number for those of you who can see on screen. But otherwise, if you need to call in, of course, add your 2 cents about what we're talking about, what we got going on. And there's still a lot going on in the borderland. But of course, it's beyond that today. Free for All Friday means that we're taking on all the questions, comments, concerns, anything in, around, and between, and around it. I don't know a better way to put it. In any case, we're taking those calls throughout both hours of the program here. So if you want to get on that line, got your burning comment that you might want to see a doctor about, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Others with Amber Banda with the Rock On, as well as Angel Rueda with the Happy Friday as well. Appreciate that as we get into a lot of stuff here. A couple of headlines we definitely want to make sure we address because there's still stuff happening in our city in the meantime here. Definitely going to be talking more about this Monday. We've crammed a lot in this short broadcast week, I should say, including the fact that, yes, the admitted and now convicted and now sentenced 2019 August 3rd Walmart shooter, 90 consecutive life sentences. That was the full expectation this entire week, given that it was the plea deal that was authored back in February. But seeing through its completion is significant and important, even if this is only the conclusion of the federal trial, and if capital punishment will come into play or be decided upon with a potential state trial. The dates on that still seeming a little bit up in the air, 2024, maybe 2025, which draws into question about the tenure of, or which district attorney will be a part of it. There is the major part, but going to be in prison for the rest of his life is, at the very least, the main thing. And even if there are as part of that, one time I'm going to say his name this show, Patrick Crucius, having not made a statement before the entire open courtroom. There were statements made on his behalf by his attorneys, lawyers, notably defense attorney Joe Spencer, who made some very interesting statements about his belief about I'll just read it here from our news partners at KFox 14 reporting from the courtroom. When asked, I believe outside of the courtroom in this case, Crucius attorney Joe Spencer was asked if he believes that he is a white supremacist, which Spencer replied, quote, "No, I don't believe he's a white supremacist," which I just got to say, that's absolute horsepucky. How you could even possibly put that forth when even within court documents, it's not really laughable, but it's so ridiculous as to have the vague semblance of humor, I guess, with it. It's part of court documents. It's a part of the wide level of reporting that has been done on this, part of the manifesto posted online. So I have no idea how you could even come to that conclusion. I just got to say that. But then also the amount of other statements, the interesting statements that were made inside the courtroom about the mental health history of this individual, including another quote from Spencer, this time quoting from El Paso Matters reporting on this, saying that Spencer told the court, including the 80 family members of the victims, that he wanted to explain, quote, how Patrick's broken brain contributed to his actions in El Paso. And listen, mental health treatment is incredibly important for people, but I'll also say that different statement that came down specifically from the federal attorneys on this. let me say it, one from here. This was being said by, I do believe, the federal attorney, the U.S. Attorney on this case, last name of Hannah, trying to find the full name of it again, referring to the reporting being done by El Paso Matters in this case. Don't want to give them, Assistant U.S. Attorney Ian Hanna said the focus needs to be on the 23 people killed, 21 shot, and one baby boy seriously injured when his parents fell on him, mortally wounded. And towards the end of El Paso Matters article on this, what was being said there, in his mission to sow hate, to divide and separate, he failed. He failed because the people of this community will never let him succeed, which is an incredibly important point, I do believe, to be made in all of this. A couple other things. I mean, this has been, of course, the major news story in our area of this past week. And so, again, the culmination of it, incredibly important, though there have been a couple other things going on in the background or even coming out today, including the fact that new today, or actually late yesterday, I do believe, that the mother of the toddler that, drowned as a result of, or died as a result of, what happened at Camp Cohen, I do believe earlier this year, the city water park on the site of the former Cohen, or nearby the site of the former Cohen Stadium, is now suing the city for $1 million. And also, speaking of big money, Tommy Gonzalez has been named the final candidate for a Midland city manager position. So, he's found a place to land is part of the story there. So a lot of big things of varying degrees going on in our community, but let's go ahead and get right into the calls for today, because I'm sure we got a lot of people wanting to chime in on this and the many, 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 many other things that have been going on in and around the community, across the state, and of course around the country and across the globe. So yeah, there's a there's a lot of commentary already coming in online. We'll pop up more of that as we go through it, as we're still, of course, happy for you for all Friday, even if the topics we got are pretty serious. Let's dive straight into it. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Andrew, thank you for taking my call. Well, at least one part of this chapter is closed. The federal case. Now comes the state case, as you said, but how long will it be is to be determined.
Yeah, again, there was, again, a statement that we talked about yesterday on the program from the district attorney for El Paso, Bill Hicks, saying that 2024, 2025 is the best kind of time frame. I had no expectation it was going to be at all this year. I mean, we're already halfway through it, and anyone thinking this would be a simple case to present, if only for the level of evidence and making sure it is presented in the most important and effective way, because given that, the other major part of his statement was, again, from the district attorney for El Paso, going to be pursuing capital punishment in this, leads me to have certain expectations that there will be as close to a full-fledged trial as you're going to get in that kind of a thing, and given the statements that are already existing. I'm not going to pretend to be completely up on evidentiary law and how it works in state courts. I did my mock trial experience a long time ago, and I'm not an attorney, don't pretend to be one, don't even play one on TV, but I don't know exactly the kind of interplay that could come from that, if any of the statements that were entered during the federal trial can or could be potentially protested for being entered at the state level. So those questions do abound, but I mean, it's a complex case, as much as people may think that there are very simple actions to be had, and that's part of the reason we've referred to things in the way that we have throughout this process. As much as I wanted to say many, many, many other phrases, is to see these things done correctly, because the last thing I would want, among many other things, but at least from my perspective, my position sitting in this chair and on this microphone talking about this, is to see anything that is being done here impacting that process in any substantive way.
True, very, very true. Well, fortunately, we have the dual sovereignty doctrine, whereas, the state can take you to trial once the federal government now has finished. But I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the state requested or subpoenaed the transcript in this federal court, in this federal case, along with any supporting documents. It is a public hearing. It's
true, and of course, but then the question comes in: could that be then a petition to be, or objected to on the record? So again, I'm not going to pretend to have an insight or a crystal ball, kind of what it starts getting to at that point. Because, I mean, even before we get to that idea, there are the possibilities of this even being relocated, given to the fact that this trial having progressed and the large amount of coverage that has been happening is, I mean, that I think if I was his attorney, again, not pretending to be in any way, the idea of a change of venue is definitely one of the big questions that is still kind of hanging over this. But I guess at least from the statements and the way that it was being put forth by, again, the district attorney from El Paso, this trial be held in El Paso. It is their intention to keep it here if at all possible, it does seem like.
Well, I for sure would be asking for a change of venue. And no ifs, ands, or buts. This this case is going to go into the millions of dollars. That's just a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, and one important question coming in there, Tritosek actually asking, what is the point of the state trial now at this juncture? 90 consecutive life sentences. They'll never see the light of day. As a matter of formality. I mean, there is that argument level of it. There's, of course, the state level charges that are, the federal ones focusing primarily on the hate crime aspect of it, as well as, of course, the murder. But I will say that essentially the question comes down to that then of the death penalty, because, yeah, there is... This person will never breathe a free breath of air again in their life. And that is a very important thing to recognize. How long that will be, I guess, is really the question that is going to be potentially decided by this state trial whenever it ends up proceeding.
True. Well, what is the question what is the purpose of the state trial? To answer it briefly, the state has every legal right to pursue these charges under the dual sovereignty doctrine, which
Certainly.
that case that issue has been addressed many, many times, and it's always been upheld by the Supreme Court that you can be tried in both jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Andrew, thank you for taking my call. Have a good weekend.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Take care.
Yeah, you as well. So with that, let's go ahead and take that first break of this hour right now. We did lay out a few things that are going on because there's, as much as it is a Friday, there's still a lot going on in the community and, of course, across the globe. But let's go ahead and take that first break right now. And again, if you want to get on the line yourself, don't forget that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Phone lines available now if you're quick with it, 915-544-5876. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 54 south at Sun Valley Drive, watch for stalled vehicle on the left shoulder. Police are working an accident northbound Yarborough at Vista del Sol. Still some stop-and-go traffic eastbound Montana from Hawkins out to Zaragoza with 10-minute delays. And it's still slow on southbound Global Reach approaching Montana Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Inflation compensation is back.
Oh, yes.
Demand your supply of $1,000.
$1,000? Oh.
Just listen for the keywords to text in to win $1,000. Happening now.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso. Orale!
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
It takes strength to care for a loved one. Emotional, physical, and mental strength. When you're giving your all, who's supporting your needs as a caregiver? TexasCaregivers.org provides information, resources, and tools for care planning and short-term caregiving breaks to strengthen the care you give while caring for yourself. Visit TexasCaregivers.org. Brought to you by Texas Health and Human Services.
In this week's Marketers Report, Raja Manar, Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of MasterCard, talks about measurement.
Measuring Sonic and Sonic branding, the principles of measurement are the same, but the parameters that you measure are different. We measured, and what we find is our investment is paying for itself in oodles.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, trusted influencers, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
Major phone carriers make you sign contracts with rigid data plans to trap you into a kind of forced phonogamy. Sounds pretty insecure if you ask me. At Consumer Cellular, we believe in a more consensual and healthy form of phonogamy, free of contracts and more flexible to your data needs. This way, you stick around not because we force you to with contracts and fees, but because you love our phone plans. Like ardently love our phone plans. Phonogamously. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, well, at least for the moment anyway, and twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Yeah, we're trying to out that whole threads thing, but I'm not sure how useful that's going to be in the long run. But hey, things changing day by day, and of course it is Free for All Friday, so we got to keep on our toes, particularly for a show like this, meaning we're taking on all the comments and calls we can cram into a couple hours of the show. So let's keep right on with this vein. Again, the number to call if you want to get on the line, full up at the moment, but keep it handy for when one call ends, the line becomes available, etc. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM, including, I mean, I'm always never quite totally prepared for what goes on in any real commentary and different comments coming in online. A lot of people chiming in over on the social media, including an interesting discussion going on the categorization of race that happens in this country. Like, the phrase that U.S. Census Bureau uses is, in fact, white or Caucasian, and Hispanic or non-Hispanic for part of that, because, that's the technical way they define it, and that's a part of a discussion going on there. Again, if you want to check in and waiting for it for yourself, primarily over on the Facebook, but a few other ways it ends up coming into. But diving back into those phone lines now, we do have Raul in the Northeast in line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Since my woke Jesuit high school education days, I've been in a search for the truth of how the world works, the discernment of reality, principally by using the scientific method, critical thinking, and expertise to identify and solve the problems that face humanity and Americans. Problems like poverty, homelessness, the decline of democracy, falling confidence in governmental institutions like the Supreme Court and Congress, a shrinking and stagnant middle class, and the existential crisis of global climate weirding. We just experienced the hottest week ever. Don't look up. This week saw the hottest global temperatures ever recorded. And this is according to data from two climate tracking agencies that cover multiple decades. On Tuesday, the average global temperature reached 17.18 degrees Celsius. And that's the highest that the U.S. National Centers for Environmental Predictions data has ever clocked. Now, we've had wildfires have been occurring more frequently and have been more severe and destructive. Cities and towns, people's homes, businesses, and schools have been and will be inundated as sea levels rise from the warming planet, and especially in the places where most people live, which is near the coast. And some of those coasts have been hit and will be hit more frequently and harder by hurricanes in some of those coastal communities. And if you don't believe this is true, This is the price of capitalism and plutocracy. Property and casualty homeowners insurance are pulling out of fire-prone areas in California. And it's the energy plutocrats and the purchase politicians who have fouled, polluted, and poisoned our environment for profits. It's profits over people, plutocrats and political prostitutes over people. And then we have the tragedy that no one is safe anywhere, anytime in America. Why? Because America has ever more guns in the hands of ever more losers, morons, and incels with their grievances, which are stoked online. And why is this? Because the merchants of the instruments of death, the plutocrats of the merchants of death, and their purchase politicians and the NRA, these pecuniary interests have thwarted the efforts to make America safe again with sensible gun legislation. We and our representatives need to make America safe again. We need to make our schools, churches, shopping malls, concerts, workplaces safe again. The freedom to bear arms should not trump people's freedom from fear of having their kids murdered at school or their parents killed while shopping or at work.
I gotta say, I kind of reject the supposition you're putting forth here. I mean, if the whole climate argument be coming up here, and that part of it, I mean, I've still been saying consistently that whatever you believe on it, if we're not thinking about what we do here, and at the very least, maybe stop using loose rock as landscaping because that stuff just keeps washing away, we're gonna, and that's a kind of flippant but minor way to put it, we're gonna be in for a lot of other issues and stop building things in Arroyo where the water moves. But also on this idea, the idea that we can either have safety or guns is, frankly, it's a false dichotomy in my mind, because the idea that people who do not commit crimes with guns having them therefore increases crime doesn't pan out if you even just think about it, nor does it actually work out. I mean, we've seen the stats that have been put forth about what has happened since the elapsing of the 1994 assault weapons ban, and I mean the general murder rates and things like that. So let me just put it this way: the idea that you can have one or the other, just, it doesn't actually end up making sense, and it ends up going towards the, well, just ban it all and everything will be fine. And yet show me a system or any regimen of laws that have worked, that have primarily dealt with or affected the rights of those who, again, have done nothing, as opposed to being focused on the enforcement and dealing with it. Part of the conversation, some of the further reporting coming out both from, I mean, this is both a local, statewide, and national story. What has happened, of course, with the August 3rd trial now coming to its federal conclusion. Again, the state trial still pending, and we'll, of course, keep on top of that as much as possible as announcements and or schedulings come up. We'll see what happens before they're too long. But one of the ideas that has been brought up, as much as the whole mental health aspect was a focus of this last day in the statements that were being made by attorneys for the now convicted and sentenced killer in this case, saying that there were attempts to prevent him from having red flag laws, essentially, without trying to go through everything being talked about there, has been being brought up. It was brought up in this circumstance, and I mean, I'll tend more to agree with people who are saying, if you're gonna try to be dealing with the Second Amendment, leave the Fourth Amendment alone, which definitely has, I mean, not agreeing with the first part of that supposition either, but I definitely agree with the second part of it, that's trying to deal with due process and just try to to use a different phrase, take the guns, deal with due process later. Also a phrase that I vehemently disagree with. I'll put it that way. So to say that we can either have one or the other, so we got to deal with all the gun nuts, as you put it here, which I think you've used it in the past to refer to the people that end up worshiping it or seeing it as anything besides the tool that it is, which I will frankly say, yeah, I don't agree with those people either. But sounds like we're not just talking about what will end up being safer, but also more punitively is what this ends up sounding like. Because if we're trying to talk about what would actually be effective, do you really think that just saying, well, nope, Dad, no one gets it anymore, would truly be effective? Do you truly believe that?
I'm quite capable of expressing myself, Andrew, so that you don't have to try to do it for me.
Not trying to do it for you. I'm asking you a question, is what's that called? So in answer to that question, do you believe that? Is that something you believe or not?
I don't believe in banning all weapons, and I never have advocated, and I've given a list of sensible gun regulation of legislation that could be passed. So it's not an all or nothing thing. I've never said it was. Don't characterize me as having made it out to be that way. Or the straw man thing that you always bring up. If you're saying this or that, no, I'm saying exactly what I said. You don't need to say what I didn't say when I said exactly what I meant to say about everything and anything that I've called in about, okay? That's why I agree with Eric on his critique of your style, which really comes across as shilling for Trump. Do you like that guy? Do you think he's the best guy to be the next president of the United States?
So to be clear here, that phrase that I just quoted from the take the guns, deal with due process later, I'm going to ask you one more question. Who do you think that was said by?
I don't care. I don't care who has said that. I tell you what I think. I think that we can have sensible gun regulation and legislation. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing proposition. And it's been the NRA and the Republican Party who has fought this tooth and nail. And what we get is what we got. Kids in schools shot. People at the Walmart shot. No one's safe anywhere, anytime in America because the country is flooded with guns and full of nuts with guns and grievances that are stoked online to include great replacement theory, and we're being invaded by the aliens, which causes these nuts to go out and do the things like this guy came to do in El Paso, having been incited and stoked by the former president of the United States.
So, to actually further answer the question, you do know who gave that quote that I gave, because it was actually the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. One of the reasons that I find myself disagreeing with him on that point, and frankly on firearms in general, because as much as it was put forth and said, Republicans, we like guns and we'll do things for it, it's undeniable that in terms of things that came into effect over the last administration, again, primarily in juxtaposition to the previous ones, there have been more action taken by the current administration. I'm not talking about that specifically, but if you were to say which administration did a lot more to restrict the capability, availability, and types of firearms that are available, was it Obama or was it Trump? A lot of people would probably knee-jerk say, Obama for sure, and yet it was under the Trump administration. Now, there wasn't much legislation passed. It ended up being different policies being put into place, ATF, all those kind of conversations that can certainly also be had. But this is why, whenever we talk about rights, whenever we talk about who's actually championing what, knowing what people are actually doing, and why we often come down on policy, and because you can talk a big game. You can say, oh, no, I only want good things to happen and none of the bad things to happen. If you're not actually giving me your plan on how you're doing it, how you're going to achieve that, it's just so much talk. And even then, plans, of course, saying, we didn't quite get it this time. I mean, look at the current the student loan forgiveness whole thing, saying, we didn't quite get it, so you better vote for us next time. I'm not saying they totally planned it that way, but it certainly is a convenient line. But point is that knowing actually what people talk about, and you've quoted that line before, so I know you know who said that in the past, but because it doesn't fit your argument at the moment, I'm not here to characterize what you're saying. And that's why, again, asked you a question, because that's like how discussion works. You say things, we respond back and forth to it, as opposed to any kind of scripted type of details, because that's what we're here for. And the people who are willing to actually conversate with me and not take it as you interrupted me, therefore you're opposed to me kind of thing. Look, if you're not here to do what we do, you can find someplace else to do it, but we're going to keep doing what we're doing in the meantime. So appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth, and the kind of lukewarm criticism of the show. I mean, I'm not here to tell anyone what to believe, but you're not thinking that I'm going to talk back and respond to what you're saying. I really don't know what to tell you. Anyway, taking that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will get to more phone calls. We get to more points and other things coming up in line. It is Free for All Friday, so we're taking it all on as we do hold true to what we intend to do on this program. So if you want to get on the phone line, again, that number to do so, if you're quick with it, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Almost 4 years later, and the federal case against the man who killed 23 people at an El Paso Walmart is finally over. The gunman received 90 life terms. The judge recommended that he receive mental health treatment in confinement for 1 year while in custody at a Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. Patrick Crusius's attorney, Joe Spencer, said that his client was not a white supremacist, even though Crusius did write an online manifesto that said he was here to stop a, quote, invasion of Hispanics. Crusius still faces the death penalty in the state trial, which is still more than a year away. The El Paso mother of a 3-year-old boy who drowned at an El Paso water park is taking legal action. Court documents show that Jessica Weaver is suing the city, Destination El Paso, and the company that runs the park, ASM Global. She is suing the 3 parties for $1 million. The drowning happened on May 13th at Camp Cohen Water Park. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On the 54 South at Sun Valley Drive, watch for stalled vehicle on the left shoulder. Police are working an accident northbound Yarborough at Vista del Sol. Still some stop-and-go traffic eastbound Montana from Hawkins out to Zaragoza with 10-minute delays. And it's still slow on southbound Global Reach approaching Montana Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. The heat rolls on. We're looking at a heat advisory through Saturday night, then Sunday through Tuesday. Excessive heat watch. 10% chance of a storm on Saturday, high around 108 degrees. For your Sunday, 10% chance of a storm, high around 109. Partly cloudy skies, 10% chance of a storm on Monday, high around 110 degrees. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Why do you change your car's air filter? Because when it's clogged, it doesn't work. The same is true of your nose, the body's air filter. It's great at trapping allergens, dust, and viruses, but unless you clean it regularly, they can stay trapped, making you miserable. I'm Martin Hogue, inventor of Navage, the world's only nose cleaner with powered suction. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping to flush out allergens, mucus, and germs. Here's a testimonial from a verified purchaser and a big Navage fan. Quote, I've been suffering for 30 years with chronic sinus infections and allergies. I stumbled across Navage. The suction is amazing. It cleared my sinus cavities better than anything I've tried before. Unquote. Navage has over 120,000 reviews with a 4.6 star average written by people who use Navage to breathe better, snore less, and feel healthier. Wash your body's air filter with Navage at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro, do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at kcsmradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, and a lot of commentary coming in there. Those dropping those likes and reacts that we certainly do appreciate as we, of course, continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland, to talk about the things that affect us here and beyond. It's Friday, of course, but still got a lot of things like going on here. But Those dropping those likes and reacts. Flaco Jimenez, Amber Banda, Jeremy Jordan, Matt Olson, Ida Beza Gardner, James Holmes, Monica Cervantes, David Dotrieve, and Robbie Flores. Hope I said all of those right. If I missed any one of them, shame on me. In any case, a lot of other commentary coming in, such as a response from John Browson saying, Raul, how many of fellow Democrats in El Paso own guns? Tens of thousands. I mean, El Paso has an interesting and different gun culture, and again, even with all of these shortages going on during the pandemic, there's already a shortage going on in our local area immediately after August 3rd. I do have to say that a lot of people were feeling the need to do something about it in their own lives. But also, I will say that, as was part of the news update from our news partners at KFOX 14, RJ, saying that I can't believe the shooter's lawyer or only a politician or a lawyer would say he is not a white supremacist, referring to their now the convicted and sentenced shooter in that case, never going to breathe a free breath of air again in his natural born life, however long that may be. So it's a finality of a certain way, even if there is still more to go with, again, the potential for that state trial, given, well, still some questions in the air about how it will progress. But in any case, let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, full up at the moment, but keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I don't think this was covered by anybody in the legacy media. Have you heard anything about a resolution made by Lindsey Graham and Senator Blumenthal that was introduced in the Senate about a week ago?
I'm not gonna be too. I think I saw a note go by, but it's definitely not been the focus, so I'm not gonna be able to say authoritatively if I'm on the same page with you here.
Okay, that if any nuclear action taken by Russia, or something happens to the nuclear plant in Ukraine, poses a threat to neighboring NATO countries, that this would automatically require an immediate response and invoke Article 5 of NATO, which says an attack on one is an attack on all.
Yeah, the whole combined defense nature of NATO, right.
In the resolution says that if Russia did this, they will be destroyed and they will be eviscerated if they do this.
So yeah, it's a response to, and I found what you're talking about here and did hear this go by, I'll freely admit, not the focus we've had of this past week, but important in its own right, and certainly what we can get to on Fridays here. Yeah, the resolution, some of the information coming out, particularly from Lindsey Graham's Senate site here, that the resolution agrees that the deployment of the Russian Federation's tactical nuclear weapons within the Republic of Belarus is a threat to Ukraine and NATO member states, and views any use of tactical weapons by the Russian Federation, the Republic of Belarus, or their proxies, an important note there as well, or the destruction of a nuclear facility. I think there's a few that have been in question, but Chernobyl certainly, or any of the active ones also still very much in question. Dispersing radioactive contaminants into NATO territory, causing significant harm to human life as an attack on NATO, requiring that, like you said, Article 5 response, that essentially the concept of NATO is that an attack on one is an attack on all. So to kind of prevent, I guess you could argue the way it was formulated, to prevent the whole, creeping incursion, oh no, we're only attacking these ones, guys. The rest of you are fine. It's no, this is a block response. And if anything went on it, and there's been questions about that being called into place already with those couple of stray munitions that have found their way into Poland and among other things. So far, of course, that has been held off on, but nuclear is a different ball game entirely.
Andrew, we have proof, or at least have very strong suspicions, that a Ukrainian group was responsible for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. And we have strong suspicions that Ukrainians may have been responsible for blowing up the Ukrainian dam. What if some group who wants to start World War III may attack the nuclear plant in Ukraine? That would, according to them, require an immediate response. We would start World War III under this resolution without knowing if this was a Russian act or a Ukrainian act. That is a scenario that is very possible, and people like Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal are very dangerous individuals. And the neocons that are in the Republican Party and part of the Democratic Party are very dangerous also.
And I've definitely seen.
Would you agree with that?
I mean, this whole situation has been volatile from the very start of it. And to think that anything's, it'll be simply done or dealt with in any way. I mean, there's been no part of this that has been unconcerning. Let me put it that way. And yeah, I've seen, World War III trending on Twitter right now for as much as Twitter is working at the moment. And so this idea of this essentially, kind of what the argument you're making is that it's kind of boosting up the red line or making it more accessible, particularly to false flag. Essentially, what you're talking about of someone trying to present themselves as Russian action in order to kick this off in we start getting into not to put it down or to denigrate the idea, but into like Tom Clancy-like scenarios, of which we've been living some lately. So that's just to say that it gets both fantastical, but also getting uncomfortably close to what reality has already been emulating lately. So no, I'm not fine with this, if that's what you're asking. I'm not saying that this is a good thing, but I understand the resolution because also Russia has proven more than its willingness to toe or even toe over the line as much as is possible. And I could totally believe them saying, oops, we didn't know that the radiation was going to go everywhere on this action. I mean, there's been questions about shelling or even mines near some of the existing, including Chernobyl, other nuclear plants this whole time. So it's been an incredibly volatile situation, and we haven't had the right match spark at this point just yet. But if outside of the potentiality of Taiwan and a conflict over that, this is definitely one of your best bets to look at whatever World War III is going to look like coming out of this. And I mean, there's an argument to be made that's already happening by proxy as it is anyway, particularly with the whole munition discussion that's been going on in the recent weeks. The cluster bombs the U.S. is intending to or strongly considering at the very least sending to Ukraine as part of the lessening weapon stockpiles that are existing around the world at this point. So yeah, there's a lot of flashpoints that exist with this, and this certainly is a concerning one. I'd certainly agree with you on that point.
Yeah. One of the things you just said was, oops, something happened. What happened? Are we at war now? Okay. One other little thing. Raul said something about that July 4th was the hottest day ever in throughout the world. Where were the temperature monitors located that were sending data to this information base? If you want to advance your climate change narrative, would you place your monitors where it is hot or where it is cooler? Who is responsible, and where do they place these monitors? Now and 20 years ago, 100 years ago, hottest ever. I mean, if you want data that says Earth is heating up, I'm sure there's plenty of places you can put monitors to show the Earth is heating up.
So, I get your point you're making on here. To briefly answer your question, to my understanding, and I'm referring to the first one that came up here, reporting from theguardian.com on this, Monday was the hottest day for a global average temperature on record. So, as opposed to, I'm sure we've all heard previously, the hottest temperature on record, I think was Death Valley, if not maybe somewhere in Saharan Africa or something like that. The Death Valley, I believe, was in the 100 teens, if not above there. I think 100 teens is what it hits regularly, actually. But so that's when the hottest temperature naturally recorded on Earth. This was about the average temperature, so about all of the available data to specifically the one, and it was actually Monday, July 3rd. This was according to the U.S. National Centers for Environmental Prediction, saying that, the average global temperature, 17.01 degrees Celsius, 62.62 degrees Fahrenheit.
You missed my point again. It is a matter that, where are these monitors been placed?
No, I get what you're saying.
Really, truly the hottest day ever, or did they just decide to take data from places where it's very, very hot and exclude data from places that may be a little bit cooler?
No,
what data are we talking about? That's what I'm asking. These climate people want an agenda. They want us to be afraid that the Earth is warming up or whatever is happening. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it is a matter that, we just, hear it on the news and we accept that fact. That is what I'm concerned about. That people like Raul and these climate people that have this agenda they want this data to show that. So therefore, it will show that.
And again, the implications that come out of the political decisions that made with this is certainly something to be discussed and to be talked about, because anyone saying that, well, these are obviously the things we have to do without looking at the impacts of it, as we've talked about in previous times, that saying just, well, this is what we got to do, and as opposed to saying, well, wait, is that the best way to go about it, is never a decision I'm just going to be like, oh, yep, no, they said it was this, therefore we have to go along with their conclusion, because if there's anything that I would hope this show serves to, if not exactly prove, at least further towards, that reasonable people can disagree, even if we say that there is a fundamental problem at place, that there are different ways we can go about trying to actually end up achieving it here. So I do take your point, but I also do appreciate the point in the call. I hope you have a good one there.
One more thing. Let's go, Brandon.
All right.
Stay well, stay safe. Have a good weekend.
No, you as well. Again, do appreciate the point in the call. So let's go ahead and got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, see if we can squeeze in another phone call. If not, we'll be back up with them shortly. And again, that phone number to call if you would like to, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking on some delays on your El Paso freeways. I-10 eastbound from Artcraft over to the Patriots, a 5-minute delay. 12-minute delays eastbound Montana Avenue from McRae out to Zaragoza. Slow traffic westbound on Montana from Desert Meadows back to the Loop. 7-minute delays there. And an earlier accident reported southbound George Dieter at Rojas. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard. Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babbel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life. You can choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. Plus, Babbel's lessons are designed to get you speaking right away. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babbel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babbel doesn't take long. And with Babbel, it isn't hard. It's perfect.
And now, try Babbel free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
In this week's Marketers Report, Chris Brandt, Chief Marketing Officer at Chipotle Mexican Grill, weighs in on the power of audio.
We've used audio to reinforce what we're showing on TV, what we're showing in other digital channels. When your priority is driving reach, boy, everybody seems to listen to the radio.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, conversations, trusted influencers, insights, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
There are choices that can change your life. Like the choice to start routine colorectal cancer screening at age 45.
It's one of the most common cancers for women and men, and it doesn't always have symptoms.
But there's good news. Routine screening can catch colorectal cancer early and even prevent it.
And there's even better news. You have screening options.
Make the choice to put your health first. Talk to your doctor about your screening options or visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Want to save big on custom faux wood blinds, shutters, cellular shades, and more? Shop Blindster today and save up to 50% over comparable blinds from brick and mortar stores. Get custom blinds at low prices and free shipping at Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of commentary coming in, including Trito Sack over on the YouTube chiming in. Earlier this week, a man was found dead in a car that had no AC in Death Valley. I think news sources mentioned the temperature being 126 on the day he was found. That does sound about right. And I was mistaken. That, definitely heard in the 100 teams, like with regularity. Highest temperature naturally recorded on Earth. Like, if you set something on fire and count that can get higher. And I'm sure it was in, let's just say, the Trinity site. Certainly had a unnatural high temperature recorded on that one particular day, some decades, last century, let's just call it that way. But 134 was the highest on the natural, natural mercury scale as existed out there back in, when actually was that? July 1913, Furnace Creek Ranch in Death Valley. So, it's and also Fluckameta saying 126 means about 160 in the car. Honestly, that could be closer to even higher than that. So I can't remember if I mentioned this in the show or not, but we were messing around. Engineer here at the station had one of those infrared temperature monitors. He uses it for maintaining equipment, those kind of things. And we would come back from grabbing lunch and continue to work on some issues around the station. And so he just had it laying around. So pointed at the dashboard. We've been driving for a minute and pointed at the dashboard. And so even with the AC blasting and all that, it registered 160. And so that was on, one of our hottest days recently in our local area. I don't think it was quite that 110 day that we hit, but any of these triple digit days can absolutely hit absolutely hard. And so that's why I say, don't leave anything that you love or could be destroyed in the car, including people, pets, children, etc., because you might not have it there afterwards. In any case, that was the highest single temperature that was recorded. Again, with the way the story's been going around and why specificity is important is that if there has been, the way the news story is about is the highest average temperature. So taking, to my understanding, I know the question being brought up with the last caller about what sensors are they looking at, etc., but of all the available data, including from the hottest places on Earth that day and the coldest places on Earth that day. But this is why it's important to read past headlines is all I'm going to say there. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now because we are going to end up being a little bit too short this segment to take one of those calls. So we'll be getting right back into them start of the next hour here. So if you're on the line there, stay there. And if you want to get on the line, once I full up at the moment, but once those lines become back available, of course, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso and the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking on some delays on your El Paso freeways. I-10 eastbound from Artcraft over to the Patriots, a 5-minute delay. 12-minute delays eastbound Montana Avenue from McRae out to Zaragoza. Slow traffic westbound on Montana from Desert Meadows back to the Loop. 7-minute delays there. And an earlier accident reported southbound George Dieter at Rojas. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Let's talk about good feet. Do you have good feet, or do you have tired, sore, or painful feet? Or maybe you even have pain in your hip, knees, or back, and you suspect it's coming from your feet. Hi, this is Mike with the Good Feet store. With over 200 stores across the country, the Good Feet store has accumulated thousands of 5-star reviews from people who struggle with problems just like these. You might ask, how do you get all those great positive reviews? Well, it may sound a little old-fashioned, but 5-star reviews come from our commitment to providing 5-star service. That's why we offer a lifetime warranty on all arch supports and a free fitting and test walk. You can try before you buy. So you've got nothing to lose. Stop in today and see what the Good Feet store can do for you.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Sandal season is here, and Good Feet fits into all your summer shoes, even flip-flops.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely, like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House says there's been irresponsible reporting about the Biden family following the discovery of cocaine in a common area of the West Wing. Responding to a question about whether the drugs belong to any of the Bidens, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre repeated the president was away at Camp David from Friday to Tuesday. The Biden administration will provide cluster munitions to Ukraine in its fight against Russia. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
And we have mobilized the security assistance Ukraine needs, including by facilitating contributions from partners and allies around the world.
The Pentagon announced the move despite concerns from human rights groups and some U.S. allies. It will lead to more civilian casualties. Twitter is seeing a rash of outages just as it gets fresh competition from Meta's Threads app. Users have reported a number of outages on Twitter since Thursday, with the peak coming at about 9:30 a.m. Friday. The website Down Detector reported about 70% of the outages were happening on Twitter's desktop site. A teenager is under arrest in connection to the Baltimore mass shooting that killed 2 and wounded more than 24. Lisa Taylor has more.
Baltimore police announced the arrest after a search warrant was executed on a residence early Friday morning. The department said detectives believe the 17-year-old male was involved in the shooting that happened early Sunday morning at a block party in the city's Brooklyn neighborhood. Police said 3 of the victims remain in the hospital. The victims' ages range from 13 to 32, with over a dozen being under the age of 17.
A dangerous new TikTok challenge led to the deaths of 4 people in Alabama. Officials say the trend is called boat jumping, and it involves people of all ages launching themselves off of moving boats. A rescue squad captain said it's frustrating because the deaths were preventable. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The deadly cargo ship fire in Port Newark that broke out Wednesday night is expected to burn for another couple of days. Natalie Migliori reports.
Officials say crews have managed to contain the fire to the upper decks of the ship, which is carrying thousands of new and used vehicles. U.S. Coast Guard Captain Zita Merchant.
Once the firefighting efforts are complete, a formal investigation will be conducted.
The blaze killed 2 Newark firefighters, Augusto Akabu and Wayne Brooks Jr., with Newark's public safety director saying funeral arrangements are being finalized.
The families appreciate all of the support.
Aside from the channel where the cargo ship is anchored, the rest of the port is open to traffic to maintain the supply chain. I'm Natalie Migliori.
The U.S. added 209,000 new jobs last month. The rise is less than expected, as analysts predicted somewhere in the neighborhood of 225,000. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics also reported today that the unemployment rate remains just about where it was in May, sitting at 3.6%. A Princeton graduate student is kidnapped in Iraq. Sarah Lee Kessler reports.
Elizabeth Surkoff went missing in March while conducting fieldwork in Iraq for her doctorate in politics. She holds Russian and Israeli citizenship and entered Iraq using her Russian passport. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the 36-year-old was kidnapped by an Iranian Shiite militia group but is still alive. The U.S. State Department hasn't commented, nor has Iraq.
The northern lights could be visible across 16 states next week. The University of Alaska Fairbanks Geophysical Institute is predicting high activity of the aurora borealis on Thursday, July 13th, across Canada and much of the northern U.S. The best time to see the northern lights will be from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. local time. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Credit.
That's credit. Enter it now.
Get your tickets now
at AXS.com
for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas, September 22nd and 23rd.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
The iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Having the time of your life is more rewarding than ever when you visit any MGM Rewards destination nationwide. Dine, stay, play, and earn on all of it. Details at MGMRewards.com. Subject to earning and redemption limitations applicable to certain purchases and in certain states.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
Rover's Morning Glory.
It's The Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the Morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival.
All of the best free curated playlists.
It's everything that rocks.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary going on, including arguments over various issues, but also some cooking advice, like Rick Reyes suggesting that maybe next time I can cook 2 over easy eggs on my dashboard when it's over 160 degrees inside. Man, I just wanted to get the hell out of that thing at that point. So I realized that, like, okay, we were blasting AC and I felt fine, but it's just something about learning that you're at cooking temperatures. Like that's too warm for a steak for me. Let's put it that way. And so knowing that I'm sitting in that just kind of makes me think, maybe I don't want to be sitting here anymore right now. So maybe I'll take it under advisement next time. But a lot of other commentary coming in, a lot of other conversations about very many issues and responses therein. Thunderdome comments very much in effect over in the primarily on the Facebook. But a lot of other things going on, but of course we have got those phone calls going as well. Line open available now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, number if you want to call in that way. And continuing on, second hour of the program now, and continuing on, of course, with Free for All Friday. So let's jump straight back into it. We do have Bill and Chaparral on the line with us here right now. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I was wondering if you heard anything about China acquiring large acreages near our military installation.
I think I misheard you. Large, what was that?
Large acreages.
Acreages, yes, about them buying up of land and other things. There actually was a bill passed in the Texas legislature. It's the most recent time that it wasn't directly on that, but certainly was in response to that type of a situation being put forth by lawmakers about basically restricting foreign ownership of significant amounts of land, I guess would be the best way to put it. I don't have that bill right in front of me, so I'd have to pull it up here. But there have been other similar bills I've been aware of in other parts of the country, kind of along those lines, and seeking to respond to that concept.
Yeah, I think near Fort Sill, Oklahoma, also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I think like a number of them. I think Alaska and primarily the West Coast, but also some of the like Midwest or. I don't really consider Midwest once you get much past like Iowa, but yeah, like Nebraska and those kind of places. Of particular interest, I believe, has been like the nuclear missile fields, among other things.
Yeah, so somebody's on that?
There is responses that are happening to it. Again, speaking particularly about the Texas part of it here, don't know much necessarily happening nationally of it, but yeah, that has been being referenced and has been having some action happen in response to it. At the very least, I can say that from Texas side of it.
Yeah, if somebody, when American tried to buy a piece of property in China, they'd have you in a camp in Siberia somewhere.
Very difficult. I mean, I would not familiar with the Chinese property purchasing because I've never been particularly interested in that. I'll say that. But I do know that in Texas, there were some protests that happened because the breadth of the law may have made it this so that even that people who have been immigrating to the United States and seeking to become, say, naturalized citizens, etc., making it difficult for them, before they get to the citizen process to purchase land. So there's been some give and take on this. But yeah, I'm aware of the kind of situation you're talking about.
Yeah, well, is somebody actually on this, or?
Depending on what you mean by on it, there certainly has been some level of response that's been happening, again, mostly from individual states, and I guess you could kind of argue that it was highlighted in its own way by the whole balloon shot down situation from some months ago, but in terms of like a sufficient response, there have definitely been people saying that it hasn't been enough yet.
Not enough yet. Yeah, I mean, these acreages are large enough to stage an attack on our bases,
And okay, I think I found the bill here. Looking at reporting from the Texas Tribune from March of this year, Texas senators facing criticism soften proposed ban on Chinese purchases of land. That is basically the original bill. Let me see if I can actually pull it up. It is. I'm not finding the number here immediately, so I'll see if I can find that. Oh, it was originally Senate Bill 147 that would have banned citizens, governments, and entities from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia from purchasing land here. Part of what the filer of the bill, Brenham Republican Senator Louis Kolkhorst, saying that what she and other Republicans have said will help stem foreign influence in Texas, according to the Texas Tribune here.
Okay, did they pass that bill, or what was the disposition on that?
I do believe it ended up getting softened, but I do believe, okay, I'll have to double check on this one. It wasn't one of the major ones we focused on in this most recent session. So give me a minute here. We'll probably take a minute and then see what actually was the final disposition of that one. Let me double check on that.
Okay. All right, then.
All right. Well, appreciate the point of the call. You have a good one there.
Okay. You bet.
All right. With that, of course, if you want to get on the line yourself, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Dan and yourself, like most conservatives, have been caused to blindly reject science in regards to man-made climate change because the disinformation and conspiracy theories your conservative information sources feed you all about how science, research, and credible sources work. Like, it's important to be aware of how conservative information sources poison the well of credible sources to get you all to disagree with settled science and objective facts about the most disagree with settled science and objective facts about the most important issues facing our country and society. And as a philosopher who can follow the logical structure of arguments and vividly see the objectively flawed ways of reasoning that lead to incorrect beliefs, I have a moral responsibility to point out how those on this station and conservative media in general purposely cause their followers to reason irrationally and to cause them to make irrational assumptions for partisan purposes.
Okay, so let's make a couple of things clear here because apparently we need to at this juncture. This show exists for its own purpose. We do our own thing here, and we certainly do open up the floodgates to allow for commentary clicking on a Friday like this. But if you think that this is going to, again, I've made this perfectly clear, so I don't think that there should be any question about this. I think that this show is going to be the whipping boy for everyone else that you disagree with but you feel has similar motivations as to either myself or some others who listen to this station, because you keep calling me a science denier in a variety of ways when what I've actually said about these issues is that I'm less interested in that aspect of it, of the okay, what is the debate going on with this, because what we're actually going to do about it, what are we going to do with the local policies, particularly in our local area, is, and also the impact that comes from it. Because let's also be honest, there is science, there is data, and there are then what you end up doing with it. Because one of the concepts that comes forward when it comes to the idea of, okay, how to respond to these issues, one of the ones that has come forth and is I'm increasingly disturbed about is what's being referred to as climate fascism. Basically, the idea that, well, we have to do something about this, and not going to exactly call it an ends justify the means type of situation, but it's closer to that than you might want, saying that, oh, well, these certain sectors are not going to be allowed to have power these days because, well, we have to cut certain things. So the way it's implemented is what I've been arguing about this whole time, and you keep kind of blithely ignoring on my part, just saying that, oh, well, you ignore certain things, when I'm saying what we do about it, what we do with this situation and with the conversations that happen around it is probably the more significant part of it. Wouldn't you at least agree in concept with that?
Yeah, you frequently lobby against reasonable policy solutions by mischaracterizing them like climate fascists or taking all guns away like you did, Raul, just now. No, we have reasonable common sense solutions to reduce the very real man-made climate change issue facing humanity that you deny exists, which you do. You're lying right now.
Okay, so when did I say that it does not exist? I would love for you to give it to me. If you're calling me a liar, present your evidence. When was that said by me on this program?
I'll link sources in the comments later, but don't pretend.
No. Not sources of other things you're saying. I'm asking you, for you are making a claim about what I have said. You are literally calling me a liar. That's not even a paraphrasing. That's literally what you just said. So when did I actually say that? Because, again, what I have said is that I'm less interested in that aspect of it as what we do about it. Because it's one thing to identify a situation and say this is a problem. It's another entirely to say how we're going to go about it. And here's the thing. If you're opposed to climate fascism, that'd be one of those things we agree about. You realize that, right?
Yeah, you mischaracterizing common sense climate change measures as climate fascism is.
Hold up. When did I characterize that? Because what I just described, if you're actually listening to me as opposed to getting all frothed up about what other people have said, is that if someone is saying that, well, essentially resources, they're not going to be available to you anymore. It's frankly what we saw here in Texas during the power outages at the start of 2022, or whatever that winter was, that not in our area. We saw oftentimes that peripheries, like neighborhoods, outside areas, exteriors of major cities were dark, out of power, and yet the central core areas, the buildings that could be seen for miles around, they were still lit up. And that was a little messed up, I think I would have to say. So trying to say that I am calling certain things bad is characterizing anything relating to this, but you got to admit there are certain ways that this would be not well done, but still be done in the name of this. Like, this is why focusing on the policies is important. You would have to agree with that.
All throughout Prop K, as you were lobbying against it, you pandered to these climate change denialists. Denied man-made climate change was a thing, and promoted the idea that there's debate amongst the scientific community on man-made climate change, which there is none. And NASA, you don't know better than NASA, like conservative media has told you.
Again, I cite my sources when we talk about these things, something that you notably don't do. So when we talk about it, we were talking about either local reporting, hearing directly from the proponents and opponents on this issue itself here. So I get it. You don't like what I'm saying. I'm not agreeing with you, and therefore you make me mad. But also, when I agree with you, you still call me a liar. So I'm not really sure what you want out of this whole situation here. But let me just make this perfectly clear. Again, the local aspect, Prop K was getting closer to a local response to it. And that's why we delved into it and wanted to make sure that people had an idea of what both, again, the sides that were putting forth the issues on this. Both, of course, the in-depth interview that we did with the proponents, the writers of Proposition K. In some of the cases, we still have that full interview available for online that anyone can go and end up reviewing for themselves here. So, okay, I don't think I'm going to convince you of anything, and not that it was even particularly my attempt to do it here, but okay, I'm going to try to come to an avenue of consensus. Would you agree that policies coming out and in response to climate change that end up disproportionately affecting particularly, let's call them vulnerable classes of people, poor, disenfranchised, periphery, those kind of things, might not be the best way to end up handling all of this? Would you at least agree with that kind of a statement?
Mischaracterizing Prop K as doing anything that, like, to address climate change that is a mischaracterization of it, and you're lying about you deny climate change, folk. Stop lying.
Again, you have made the claim. Prove it, because here's the thing. I get it. You get all these things mixed up. There are other people on the station who say other things. And again, we always on this show and continue to do so, do our own thing. And it's one thing to call someone a liar. I could call you a liar because you don't actually be able to source those kind of things. And I could also end up backing that up. But if you're mad about something and you're saying that, well, why don't people agree with me? It must be because there is some reason that they just disagree with me. Some other reason besides they have come up with their own logic and reasoning about this. You've mentioned previously in the comments that you don't actually talk with anyone else like this, that you only end up talking on this program, because here's the thing. If you are actually trying to convince someone of any of these issues, of your standpoint, of your correctness on it, I know for damn sure, as much as you've never actually answered this question, that this is not how you would go about it, because as much as you respond yourself into it in these ways, if someone is saying that, hey, you suck, you should agree with me, and then you would suck less, like, that's not a reasonable point. And trying to pretend that, well, I'm just going to shout you down and therefore I'll be right, that's some serious internet troll logic. And yes, that is a form of trolling, is what you're doing here, because even when someone agrees with you, you call them lying because you don't like the standpoint they're coming from. Yeah, no, that's not what we're going to do. If you want to discuss the issues and actually say, well, okay, here's why I think something is good, as opposed to, hey, y'all suck and therefore you should agree with me, and then you would suck less. And yeah, that is a little bit of a characterization of your argument, because all the times I've actually asked you questions and asked you to clarify your points or anything we could agree upon, you keep coming back to the whole you suck type of reasoning. So yeah. Anyway, appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth, for what sensibleness I guess there was able to get out of it. But it's Friday, and this is what we do on Fridays. And if you want to get on the line, of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We'll be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I have your host, Andrew J. Polk, continuing on with this next hour of the show. So, well, let's get right back into it after this brief break. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Stay tuned. More here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Traffic looking pretty good for a Friday, almost accident-free. I-10 eastbound, slow traffic, 7-minute delays from Trans Mountain over to the Patriot. An accident reported on North Mesa Street after Executive Center Boulevard. Slow traffic, Montana Avenue in both directions, westbound from Desert Meadows back to the Loop with a 7-minute delay. And eastbound, it's a 10-minute delay from McRae out to Zaragoza. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. The cash back from trips, restaurants, all doubled. Seriously, though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
The teacher had said she was daydreaming. Stacy, he is extra sensitive, and there is no in-between for him.
Are you wondering why your child is struggling? It might be a sign of a learning or thinking difference like ADHD or dyslexia. Some kids are wired differently, but all kids can thrive with the right support. Talk with your pediatrician to find answers and explore solutions. The American Academy of Pediatrics and Understood.org are here to help. Visit understood.org/iHeart for tools and resources.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giant's cat and kitten food, too.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting rules for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Replace stop, opt out.
Guys, got hair loss? I know what you're thinking. Should I shave my head, comb it over, wear a hat? Just stop. This isn't 1970. Keep your hair and your confidence, because Bosley, America's #1 hair restoration expert, can give you your real hair back permanently. Check them out today, because they're giving away an absolutely free information kit and a free gift card to anyone that texts LOSS to 200-300. Dude, you don't have to look like your dad, because this isn't your dad's hair loss treatment. People all over the country trust Bosley because they're ahead of the curve. They use the latest technology to give you your real hair back. And the best part? Bosley's permanent solution is protected by the Bosley Guarantee. Let Bosley show you for free how awesome your hair could look with an absolutely free information kit and a gift card for $250 off. Text LOSS to 200-300. That's LOSS to 200-300.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, and a lot of other commentary and a lot of other things that we talk about there. There's a lot of different things coming in, and that we'll, of course, continue discussing because there's a lot to be discussed. And if you want to call in on the line, of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of fun we have on this. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. Again, a lot of other commentary coming in and a lot of other points being made. It's kind of hilarious sometimes. Anyway, we do have Stephen on the east side here with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you as well. What's on your mind?
So it's funny that it's totally coincidence. Sometimes I end up after Eric calling. And for a person who complains a lot about other people giving straw man arguments and like that and being biased, I mean, I haven't seen anybody calling in here who is nearly as biased and gives as many straw man as Eric and Raul do. So take that for what it's worth. But a couple examples of that would be Raul, basically every week, sometimes multiple times a week, he decides he needs to call in and complain about the January 6th riot. So this week, I just found out about an interview with the chief of police, the Capitol Police, not a partisan guy, someone who worked with Democrats, worked for Nancy Pelosi and everything. And he admitted that large numbers of federal agents were in there along with the Capitol rioters. So not only did the Democrats have an opportunity to accept the offer of have National Guard come protect the Capitol, but there were large numbers of federal agents along with the people who broke into the Capitol. And I have always said that I didn't like this attack on the Capitol. I thought that these people were a bunch of useful idiots. And in large part, you have to ask yourself, who were they being useful idiots for? Because if they had the opportunity to beef up the security at the Capitol after having some knowledge ahead of time that something could happen, and there was good intelligence that something like this would happen, but they declined to beef up the Capitol, and they had lots of federal agents that were there along with it, why would they not try to stop it from happening before and during? What would be their motivation of stopping that from happening? So that's something that Eric and Raul need to step back, stop blathering, and just think about, why would they not try to stop it from happening? So if they thought about it, they might realize that in that one sense, that they themselves could be some useful idiots for doing exactly what these people wanted, which was to harp on Donald Trump, on people who voted for Trump, as it's supposedly their fault that there was the Capitol riots, and do that for a couple years because that's the only thing the Democrats had going for them. They don't have good policies. They don't have good things to help people. They don't have things that are good for the lower middle class. All they can do is pretend that these useful idiots were a threat to democracy and vote Democrat. Otherwise, you're voting against democracy. And they can do that for a couple of years and hopefully try to win some votes because they're scaring people about supposed domestic terrorism from Trump supporters. All right, so that's the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is the climate issue. Yes, there is basically a consensus on a couple of ideas. One is that it has gotten warmer over the last 200-300 years. So, and there's also a consensus over this idea of the Little Ice Age, which was a time period that it was colder than it had been for the previous 7,000 to 8,000 years. So it got steadily colder over thousands of years, and we went into a period called the Little Ice Age. About 300 years ago, it started to get warmer. And it started to get warmer before humans even put out a lot of CO2, by the way. Then we started putting out a lot of CO2 the last 150 years or so. And there is basically consensus that our CO2 can contribute to warming as well. So it was warming, and we have contributed to warming. So where the debate comes in is how much warming has there been that's natural and how much warming has there been that is CO2 that's causing it. And there is debate in the scientific community and the peer-reviewed literature on how much warming is human-caused and how much isn't. The other debate is warming of the globe actually bad? Because weather wasn't necessarily all that good during the Little Ice Age when it was quite cold. I mean, there was lots of droughts and famines and all kinds of problems too. The other thing is the benefits of the fossil fuels give us, as well as the benefits of having carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, because all of the plants and the crops that we grow benefit from carbon dioxide. So I've talked to you about this several times on this program, and I agree with you that you never really took a position on the scientific matters. You always end up with responses that have to do with what are we going to do about it? What are the things that practically can we do? Should we use solar panels? Should we do this and that? And I think both of us have agreed that solar panels could be a good idea, but the implementation of that, like something like Proposition K, that's a whole other thing entirely, because there was all kinds of things in there that, even though I might like solar panels, I disagree with some of these other things that are in there and the way they went about it. So people like Eric, they're zealots, and Raul, they don't listen. They don't understand nuance. They go in their little troll chamber on the internet and they get all riled up and they try to take that out on you and people who listen to this program and people who can actually have conversations. So it's good for you for putting up with it, but I hope you have a good weekend and you know, stay safe and try not to get too upset when these people are ignorant.
I'll just put it this way. If I didn't enjoy immensely what we do here and the ability to talk about these things and think it was important, moreover, but also, I mean, I have been into these calls more often than not laughing. So if anyone's just trying to troll me and get the goat and try to get me to, rage quit any of these things, I've gone through so much worse, my dudes, to think that you're going to be able to, through a phone call, get me to, oh, man, oh, geez, God, I have to reevaluate my whole life. Like, they're looking for, I mean, it's not even an epiphany moment. If they were actually trying to do that, they would be actually talking in ways that are like meant to convince people, because again, telling someone that they suck and therefore you should agree with me has never worked as much as that question hasn't been answered. But also, it's an ego thing of I am important because I am arguing this, and if you therefore don't agree with my argument, you're saying I'm not important. I mean, it's a whole psychological thing going on with it. So don't worry, we're going to be here for as long as we're able to have this show on the air, and that's the way we're just going to keep on doing this.
And one last thing, I do think it's kind of ironic that you would say, I would say, and I think everyone would agree, that people like Eric and Raul generally come from the left. So something that we've seen ever since COVID, which I thought was very interesting, is that leftists who before used to be very critical of government, big government, critical of fascistic ideas, critical of top-down control of government over people's lives and everything. Over these last few years, they've actually flipped on that, and they don't seem, they're like, oh yeah, the government, all they just want to do is help us. They want to help us with vaccines, and these big pharmaceutical companies are just trying to produce these vaccines that help us, and they wouldn't hide anything that may be controversial there, or they wouldn't take advantage of this situation with climate to kind of exaggerate a little bit so they can put over on us a little bit more top-down control. And they kind of have flipped on that when it comes to historical leftism and being a little bit more skeptical about authority. Would you agree?
It's an interesting way they end up putting it there. The idea that, well, it's always been the case of, if you want to take it even a little bit further or in a different way, when it comes to government spending, what is always the refrain that comes there whenever it's someone happening out of power? Oh, government spending is bad, as much as there are also, conservatives historically against big government. And yet when they end up in government, all of a sudden, well, this is necessary spending, right? And it always ends up being that way because it's only bad if you don't have control over it, is a kind of way that it ends up coming down. So the way you're putting it specifically, again, interesting way to put it. But unfortunately, whenever you're criticizing the levers of power, the perspective changes when you then have your own handles on them yourself. And that's a unfortunate and frankly, one of the things I end up finding myself most dissatisfied with whenever it comes to our current government in any way you end up shaping it, because if all that you're saying is that, well, it's bad unless we're doing it. I fully come down to the idea of if a power exists, if there is a ability to do something that you think is fine, if you have control over it, if it's fine, if you are the ones that are directing it, making sure it happens the way you want it to, but it gives you no end of nightmares of someone on the different side of the political scale or any other political ideology from yourself has control over it, maybe that power shouldn't exist.
Yeah, well, it goes with government spending when it comes to military too. Historically, the left has been anti-war, but they're all for this Ukraine war. I've tried to be consistent. I've always said that government spending on military is probably too high, and they need to be more discreet with it. And these, I always point out these big discrepancies with, the Pentagon lost this many billions of dollars,
well,
and this many, but they would go after an individual who, on his taxes maybe made a mistake or missing 1,000 or whatever, but they'll go missing billions of dollars in the Pentagon. They'll get away with it just fine. So if you're going to be a conservative, you're going to be a libertarian, be consistent and hold your own party's feet to the fire when they're doing the same thing. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. You have a good one there as well. All right. With that, we got to take that next break. Right now, I will just say that, if it only comes out that the things that are bad when other people are doing them, it's necessary when we're doing them, so to speak. Logically speaking, it's a major thing. Just briefly, there have been a few questions in the comments coming up about climate change and my perspective on it here. It's undeniable that the United States, and the rest of the world, goes through different cooling. There's things been talking about solar maximums and minimums. So the Earth definitely goes through cycles. But also, I have to say, given the amount of impact that human civilization has had on this globe, look at what has happened with smog, the reason the EPA was established, Clean Air Acts, those kind of things, whether you like it or not. There's, from people back from in the 70s and those time frames, the difference of way that air quality was between then and now. And so if you think that we have that kind of impact, but not on other parts of this world, I don't know what to tell you, because to think that we have no impact on the environment around us just doesn't make sense. I got to put it that way. But again, the question that I come down to more importantly is, again, the policy focus we have in general on this program. And by the way, I did find the answer to that question about from the previous caller about that bill, Senate Bill 147. It did end up dying in the House in that, so it did not end up going into effect here in Texas. So not too sure about the other perspective on the part of it, but let's go ahead and get to that next break right now. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Almost 4 years later, and the federal case against the man who killed 23 people at an El Paso Walmart is finally over. The gunman received 90 life terms. The judge recommended that he receive mental health treatment in confinement for 1 year while in custody at a Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. Patrick Crusius's attorney, Joe Spencer, said that his client was not a white supremacist, even though Crusius did write an online manifesto that said he was here to stop a, quote, invasion of Hispanics. Crusius still faces the death penalty in the state trial, which is still more than a year away. The El Paso mother of a 3-year-old boy who drowned at an El Paso water park is taking legal action. Court documents show that Jessica Weaver is suing the city, Destination El Paso, and the company that runs the park, ASM Global. She is suing the 3 parties for $1 million. The drowning happened on May 13th at Camp Cohen Water Park. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound slow with 7-minute delays from Trans Mountain over to the Patriot through downtown. An accident reported North Mesa Street after Executive Center Boulevard. Westbound Montana is slow from Zaragoza back to the Loop, a 5-minute delay. And a reminder in the lower valley on Horizon Boulevard, two-way traffic is back in that section from Doy to Ashford Street. Expect possible delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. The heat rolls on. We're looking at a heat advisory through Saturday night, then Sunday through Tuesday. Excessive heat watch. 10% chance of a storm on Saturday, high around 108 degrees. For your Sunday, 10% chance of a storm, high around 109. Partly cloudy skies, 10% chance of a storm on Monday, high around 110 degrees. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Every day, you breathe in thousands of tiny little germs, allergens, and viruses. Don't let these invisible invaders make breathing through your nose impossible. Flush them out with Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage to make cleaning your nose easy. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping flush out everything that makes you miserable. Nearly 4 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier. People like Doug, a verified Navage user who writes, I had difficulty for years breathing through my nose. After using Navage, my whole breathing has changed. My sinuses don't hurt and no more stuffy nose. It's an amazing product. Unquote. If you suffer from sinus congestion, allergies, or snoring, then Navage is the safe, drug-free solution you've been looking for. Navage is at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and Navage.com. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
The Dell Technologies Black Friday and July event starts now with savings on select Vostro, Latitude, and XPS PCs with Windows 11 Pro. Plus, get free shipping on everything. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. Call 877-ASK-DELL.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Stay informed at ktsmradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. But of course, we also got the similar pages under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, other on Facebook, including Twitter and Twitch.tv, YouTube as well, of course. Can't forget that in there. And of course, Talk El Paso, brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, 950 Crockett Street, right across I-10 from Sunland Park Mall. Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. And a lot of debate, including over the nature of the American Revolution. If I'm tracking this right, sometimes it moves a little bit fast to also be like talking and doing the show during it. But the idea of why the American Revolution happening, I mean, taxation without representation, certainly a part of it, and can still be found on the license plates for the District of Columbia, of course. So it always takes on different tones and tenors that than I can ever really expect. But anyway, get back to those phone lines right now, squeezing what we can before the end of the program. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Mario on the east side of the line with us here right now. Mario, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew.
Hey there. What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I think that Eric and Raul, they're pretty radical. You know, if you don't believe like they do, then you're a white supremacist. You know, they'll call you all kinds of names and accuse you of all kinds of things.
Sure.
Now, I'm a conservative, and I know that Eric is saying the right wing, conservative, you know, disinformation, and all this stuff. Listen, I don't have to think like you, Eric. I don't have to think like Raul. I don't have to think like them. I have my own mind. They get their information from the internet. Not everything is true. They have to get informed correctly. As far as the climate change, I think I mentioned it before on your program. I don't believe that humans are the culprit to climate change. It's a cycle that the Earth goes through. They need to look at the history. If you look at the 1930s, 1940s, with the Dust Bowl, that happened in about, 9 states? And you know something? Those things are out of our hand. They're not. We don't cause those things. You know, this climate alarmists like Eric and Raul, it's fear-mongering. You know, they keep saying that we're existential threat. You know what? We're going to be here another 100 years. Probably we won't be here, but at least the Earth will, and people that come after us, they'll be here. We're not going to do nothing. Once again, I think I mentioned it before. Yes, the Earth is a little bit warmer. It's going through a cycle. But you and I have nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, we produce more food than ever before because of our favorable climate, weather. And if it wasn't, I don't want to go back to a nice age, which I think those two guys want to go to. You know, I don't think so. There is a lot of climatologists that they're out there that disagree. They have a different data, different science than those people that the White House, hires, and John Kerry and all those people. You know, they have a different data, different science. If you would just read some of them, you know, they're not gonna have the same thing. And they said that we don't contribute not even a 0.5% to this climate, narrative, because you know what? It's just something that it's natural. And but that's I guess they keep listening to the wrong information. And then as far as Raul keeps saying that Christian, the murderer who came to kill innocent people in El Paso, white supremacists, everything. He wants to attach everything to Donald Trump. You know what? Nicolas Ramos down in Uvalde. He killed innocent people, innocent children. He was Hispanic. And they want to attach that. Oh, white supremacist. Everything's white supremacist. I voted for Donald Trump. White supremacist. Why? I mean, I have my own mind. I do my own research. I have my own beliefs.
Sure.
And I don't have to think like them. It's like groupthink. They want to think like what the media tells them. the LSD. Really, the people are pretty much something's
Okay.
not right with their minds. But anyway, because there are a bunch of racists in there. And then, of course, CNN, Constipated News Network, they always make a face every time the word Donald Trump is mentioned. So, but anyway, those are my points. I think that they need to inform themselves better. Where they get information, they want to sound very intelligent, very, very, very smart, but really they're pretty ignorant when it comes to these real things that affects our, our politics here in our city.
Yeah, well, appreciate the point of the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you. You too.
I'll say this, the guy who has now been sentenced to several dozen lifetimes in prison, as he rightly and justifiably should have been, was an unabashed white supremacist, and for his lawyer to say anything but is just, it's posturing for the state trial. That's about the only way I can end up saying it here. But okay, it often becomes very difficult to think about. You think about the immensity of the oceans, and yet there's a patch of, I forgot the last measurement of it, but I think the last I saw was like the size of France of floating debris, particularly plastics out there. And it's a lot of that ends up being put on the individual, like, oh, you got to stop using a straw to do with it, when a lot of that ends up being like fishing nets from the industrial nature of it. So putting on an individual is often a misnomer for that. But let's take it to a concrete example. When it comes to the definable change, we have not even just seen in history, but in the makeup of this world, it is actually going to be very easy in the geologic sense to date before and after 1945. When it comes to future generations, like even millennia from now, because there's going to be so much more radioactivity that's going to be present. And there have been more than 2,100 nuclear tests, including nuclear devices, including, of course, the, Hiroshima bombs. Yeah, Flacco Meta saying that it's actually in the size of Texas now. That sounds about right, but France was the last one I was sure that I had heard. But so the nuclear testing, eventually there was the atmospheric testing ban, because the fact that looking up in history that they used to have parties in Las Vegas to do mushroom cloud watching kind of makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck hearing about that now, doesn't it? Like literally that was a thing that was done. They even chose a miss mushroom cloud, or like in a beauty pageant at one point back there. There was a lot of messed up stuff thinking about what and how nuclear weapons would work. But the reason they went with underground is because they started realizing, oh, this is bad. This is doing bad things. So much now that there's actually a market to go after the steel in shipwrecks that are like World War II and just previous. That is because the steel and the way it is made has that much less radioactivity material in it. It comes to deal with blast furnaces and how we heat steel these days. It's not that there isn't a way around it. It's just that that's readily available and ends up being more economically more feasible, because if you're doing like specific surgical instruments, having any additional radioactivity or other particulates embedded in that steel from modern production can seriously impact it and have issues with the procedure you're going towards. So to say that humanity can have no impact on this world and no impact on the way we inhabit it, look, I fully agree that the Earth is going to continue. The question is it going to be able to continue in a way that is habitable by those that currently inhabit it? Because, we live in extreme-ish conditions here, but if all of the world had lived in these same conditions, there's a lot of people that would not make it. Hell, even if there was disruptions of our systems, and this is not meant to be fear-mongering, it's rather from a congressional report when it comes to the idea of if there were to be a significant disruption of electrical power within the United States for any extended period of time, there would be a depopulation of the American continent by an upwards of 90% factor. So we live tenuously. To make no mistake, we live tenuously as hell, but because there's no backup plan. There's no, okay, what happens if things go wrong? Sure, there may be a plan, but there's no like resourcing towards it. There's not huge amounts of, all right, we got another, whole continent to inhabit or anything like that. This is the world we live in, and a lot is put into towards progression, towards making things improve or better, or hopefully both of those things. But when it comes down to it, there's a whole lot of, well, this better work because we don't got a backup, or at least not a feasible one that wouldn't involve significant human suffering. So not recognizing that is a serious problem. So I think we have time for one more quick call on the line. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Hello there, Andrew. Thank you. I just want to get your thoughts briefly on the prohibitions about explosives around the 4th of July holiday. And I've heard contradictory information concerning what was put out by the city and the county, and it seems like it changed. I could be wrong. That's the way it came across to me. I don't listen to the radio all day.
Fair enough.
Either we're going to have it or we're not going to have it. And one of the excuses or reasons for not enforcing that this time was as well, we're not as dry as we were last year. And I just think it's nonsense. And people need to use their own common sense, regardless of what the city or county come out with. Because we had something like 38, I believe I heard, accidents with this stuff.
That
by people, professional environment in a professional venue. Fireworks are absolutely beautiful. I like them. But for somebody walking down the street and throwing off firecrackers, I think that's nuts. What do you think about that stuff?
So, yeah, basically the county has certain thresholds that by, at the very least, its own policy, if not statute, like state of Texas, I'll have to double check on that part, require it that if they don't do certain, if they're not at certain levels, they can't ban aerial fireworks or fireworks in general in the county. The city has a blanket ban on them because the city can pass ordinances. The county can't. And so the county, we were like just below the level, like I don't have it exactly in front of me here, but something along the lines of if we were above 650 in this scale that I'll report it on in the past, but I don't remember it offhand, that it would be, okay, these things could be banned by the county by choice. And we were at like 647 in the time frame they had to make the decision. So it was like razor thin, but technically they were not able to make that decision. County Judge Ricardo Samaniego at the time did say that he would be working with fireworks retailers to try and lessen the amount of or availability of, say, the, like aerial ones, the ones that can like get really out of hand or the amount of videos I saw going around this 4th of July, not from our area, but just in general of people doing just real stupid stuff and basically taking, fireworks to the face, among other things, it was significant. So that was the reason for that. But also, yeah, if you're going to be dumb, at least be dumb in a way that doesn't hurt other people or cause other things to go on fire. Because if your stupidity is only your problem, that's one thing. If you're making everyone else's, we got different issues there.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Andrew, thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. And with that, I think we're going to about have to just go ahead and close out the show for today, because we're out of time here for this one. But I do want to say that we've talked about quite a lot of things here on this program, and we'll, of course, continue doing it as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. But that'll about do it for us for today. We'll kind of have to skip that last break, but tell you got a couple things that are coming up for you on the program tomorrow on the El Paso History Radio Show, airing 10 to noon here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We are going to be having on talking about the crypto Judaism and the people who may have Jewish heritage and not realize it. No, we're not talking about cryptocurrency Judaism or anything like that, but literally the concept of those that may have the heritage but have never known about it. So that'll be tomorrow on the program, but we got a lot more that's been worked on for you next week on the show as well. We got a whole lot of subjects that we just did not get to this week. So city manager, what's going on? We also got the 150th, that sesquicentennial of the city of El Paso, and a whole lot more going on. So we'll have to leave it there for today. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show if you're actually wanting to talk about the issues that affect us here in the borderland, because, well, there's a lot to go through as we'll continue to do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great weekend, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled semi northbound on Memorial Highway at Edgemere has been moved off to the right shoulder. Slow traffic on the 10 eastbound Trans Mountain to the Patriots, a 5-minute delay. An accident reported eastbound Paisano Drive at Gateway North. And congestion, heavy traffic at the port of entry, I-10 westbound at Ramp F. That's exit 22B. There's the backup on the exit ramp. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are,
iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else, and we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. Get started today at iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
There are choices that can change your life, like the choice to start routine colorectal cancer screening at age 45. It's one of the most common cancers for women and men, and it doesn't always have symptoms. But there's good news. Routine screening can catch colorectal cancer early and even prevent it. And there's even better news. You have screening options. Make the choice to put your health first. Talk to your doctor about your screening options, or visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Did you know that only 2 in 10 El Paso County students graduate with a bachelor's degree? By supporting Border Youth Athletic Association's mission of educational attainment, you will create a long-lasting impact in our students' lives. Your monthly donation enables 4th through 12th grade students access to after-school programs, providing a safe and healthy environment. BYAA engages and empowers El Paso's future through mentorship and leadership development. We believe every player who gets an education wins. Do you? Go to borderyouth.org and show your support for our youth today.